Welcome to the Zoe Routh Leadership Podcast, where we share all things people stuff in leadership. Learn from leaders who have done the hard yards and learn from experience. Hear from expert authors about the latest insights from culture to strategy and messy people dynamics. Get tips and insights from multiple award-winning author and leadership expert herself, Zoe Routh. Now, on with the show.
Hey, it's Zoe. My question for you today is this. Do you have a commanding leadership presence? Do you walk into the room and have everybody gravitate towards you? Are you oozing charisma? Do you even need to? And what is genuine, authentic leadership presence that works for you? I'm going to answer that question in two different ways for you today. The first one is an amazing course I want to tell you about. And the second one is with this awesome interview with a fabulous leader. And I'll tell you about her in just a moment. Okay, the first thing is the course. The course is by Ginny Whitelaw, who is the author of Zen and the Way of Making a Difference, which is one of my favorite books that came out either this year or last year. Anyway, it's fabulous. I love the book. And her course, Resonate, is based on the book. And it is all about developing that authentic connection with people in a very physiological way, because we're all made out of vibrations, vibrations and energy. So it's about mastering energy and your own internal resonance as a way of commanding leadership presence. You can check out the course at innerplicity.com, and you can save $100 off the course by plugging in ZOE100, that's Zoe100 at the checkout. That's at innerplicity.com. Click on courses, click on professional courses, and you will find Resonate right there. So let me tell you about our guest. Her name is Susie Walford. She is the general manager for EML, managing personal injury claims for government and private employers. She's been in the industry for 30 odd years. And I met her about 20 years ago when we were both fresh and new to the world of business. And she was looking for leadership support, and I was looking for coaching clients, and we came together. And we've been fast friends ever since. I have long admired her as a leader. I loved her passion and enthusiasm for her team members, the care and compassion she had for other humans, and her deep humility, and how she was always keen to lean in and learn more about leadership in better service to others. So I'm so delighted to have her on the call and to expose her talents and skills and wonderfulness for everyone to listen. So make sure you tune in and listen to all the great secrets and lessons that she's learned over her career. And now on with the show. Susie Walford, I am so excited to have you on the show. Welcome.
Thank you, Miss Zoe.
I love how you call me Miss Zoe. It makes me feel 20 years younger, that's for sure.
We were 20 years younger when I first met you.
That's right. It was. I know. Like you blink and all of a sudden you can say, 20 years ago, 30 years ago, rah. And actually, I think that's a really good place to start is 20 years ago. Paint us a picture. What were you doing? Where were you working? What were your concerns and issues as a leader back then?
I was running a claims team at an insurance company and really just winging it in every way. So every day the adrenaline was going, and every day I was just trying to do my best and going home every night and beating myself up around how I should have approached something differently.
What did you find like the hardest part back then? I mean, you say I'm winging it every day and all the adrenaline would have been hard. But where do you think you were making it up the most?
Just in the presence, I think. Like I've always had a really strong instinct around personal injury and how to manage a claim and how to help people navigate being unwell and then getting back to life. But I think the people leadership piece you're not really trained for, and I definitely didn't have any of that investment into me back then, which is why I started talking to you, I think, just to try to get some tools and some confidence in how to approach it and how to just not damage people.
Oh, geez. How to not damage people. That's a good low bar to start with for leadership.
Well, at the time, I think I had experienced a number of leaders where I just saw people just so deflated, or people with great intents, just to even great intent as a leader, and for it to come across in a way that I'm sure they didn't intend to. And so I was just really hypersensitive to not by learning from those leaders I'd had.
So you felt like you'd been damaged and you didn't want to do that to anybody else necessarily.
Not necessarily me damaged, but I definitely saw people who didn't have leadership experience as well, or that training or direction. Often in the insurance industry, people who had strong technical skills were just lumped into leadership roles. Mm-hmm. So there wasn't a path for people to take on people leadership back then. I think it's really different now, thank goodness. But in those days, if you knew a lot of stuff and could read a lot of legislation, they basically just said, and you also have to lead all those people, which didn't always work so well.
Yeah, that's absolutely right. And it's common in other industries as well. So you get technical expertise, people assume you can then step into management. It's a whole new set of skills for sure. So what were some of your early wins? Like you're like, yeah, I think I nailed this leadership stuff. Like, do you remember when you felt like, whoo, I've got this one?
I think I nailed the client stuff really well, and I just applied that to managing people. So I nailed delivering to customers because I just wanted to make them happy, but I found a way to connect on what they needed. And so I think I just took that approach to managing people as well. And I mean, it came from that syndrome of really wanting to be liked, I suppose. But in the end, I really cared about how their day was. And that's probably the thing I've always carried with me, that I want the people that I work with to have a great day every day.
That is such a beautiful philosophy. I just want my team to have a good day every day. I love that. So what were some early challenges? Like, you talked about beating yourself up and worrying about getting it wrong. What were some stumbles that you may have made early on?
At that time, Zoe, it was a very male-oriented industry. So I have the voice of an 8-year-old and that can really mean that it's challenging to kind of bring your presence along sometimes. So those times when you're trying to assert yourself and I hear my voice come back to me, it can really knock the wind out of me sometimes. Actually, it's just happening right now that I've been conscious about it. So I think back then it was really just around, I felt like I didn't have that presence and I should have had a stronger kind of assertion. But yeah, as I have got older, I've realised that that's not such an important thing. But definitely back then, a lot of the challenges I had were not about what I knew, because I think I had a strong instinct around people leadership and client management, and in personal injury, managing people who are injured. That's the key, just making a relationship and connecting and really building trust and then helping them get back to where they need to be. So I nailed that, but it was always just the inside voice. It was always I should look or sound a little different.
Yeah. And I think that's a really unhelpful belief, by the way.
Yeah.
I think it's time for you to let go of that story, Susie. This is just with love. I know you well, and I want to make sure you hear this in a positive way, is that you don't have a voice of an 8-year-old, as you say. Your voice has changed significantly. And I'm not sure if you're aware of this. And I don't think it's necessarily tone or pitch or anything like that. It's the conviction in what you are about that comes through in your voice that is different.
But that's definitely been part of the help that I've had from you over the years, because that probably was one of the earliest kind of insights that you gave me around just how to deal with that. But it was a big thing at the time for me.
Yeah, it was.
Yeah. But I mean, I did get a lot of people, and I still do, who ask if my mum and dad are at home if they call me.
Really? Well, that's something that we don't want to fight against as we both get a few more gray hairs.
I'll embrace it.
That's right. Oh God. That's such a hard lesson, like to have this, this is the way I'm built. How do I actually change that? How do I actually contend with that? Because it seems like an insurmountable barrier to get past. So some of it was like encouragement from others. What do you think, fast forward 20 years now, what do you think your current challenges are?
Oh, look, there's still always that, there is always that part of me that says, do I actually know what I'm doing, or have I got this right? But now I'm in a really good place right now. I feel like I have done all of that hard work, and now I'm really lucky that I can just enjoy what I'm doing. So the challenges are always the stuff that bothers me around my people, and And like I said, what we do can sometimes have an impact on us, and we take some of that home. So it's always worrying about that, and just how we navigate this whole world at the moment, and keep everyone safe is probably my biggest challenge.
Well, that is a pretty massive challenge. And it's a sign that you care so much that it sits heavy on your shoulders around that. Where to next for you? Like you say that you were enjoying the work. So let's just dive into that a little bit. Like, what is it that you enjoy about what you do?
I came from the privately underwritten insurance world where we manage people who have been injured. And unfortunately, that these days has sort of gone down a route where it can really quite often get to a litigation place rather than you just have an injury and get supported straight back to work. And so now I've moved that into the government space, which is really challenging because it's different types of claims and a different kind of workforce in some ways. So what I'm enjoying about it is the challenge of 3 years ago, I didn't know this legislation. I didn't know. And it was basically building a business from scratch. Like I built a business in Canberra, started it from zero, and have now got nearly 50 professionals that are delivering services and sort of contributing back to the city, which I really like. And also, I think my husband being a firefighter, I've had a long-term drive to do a better job with psychological injuries, PTSD. And so I feel like I'm in a position now where I can really make a difference. So it's much less about the work now and more about my purpose, which is a really nice place at this time of my life to be.
And what do you figure that purpose is?
Doing better. So finding a way to do better for people who are exposed to psychological injury.
Okay.
And setting up practices so that you don't damage people psychologically, so you can prepare them and make them more resilient. If you are in a job every day where you have to face that, I think we can arm ourselves the way that we arm a policeman to go out and do their job. We can arm other industries who have to go out and maybe face trauma or just deal with hard stuff on a continual basis that can really impact you.
Yeah, right. That's really noble work, and it's not happening everywhere. But what I am grateful for through COVID is the raised awareness around mental health issues and helping people contend with that. And certainly the work that I've read by Hansi Freinack, this is a slight tangent, but related. He talks about what's needed in leadership next. And one of the important skills that we're going to need to double down on for humans in general is emotional intelligence and being able to have mental and emotional resilience. Because of the nature of our constructed and integrated and interconnected world, it's putting pressures on us in a different way than we've experienced previously. So this is definitely on the leading edge of what's needed. So that's really cool, Suze. This sounds like a big triumph for you, this setting up your current organization and growing it from scratch, which is a big deal, by the way. And now you are sitting aligned to your purpose. You know exactly what you're after and what you want to accomplish. Can you tell us about a biggest failure or a biggest failure, your biggest failure, if you dare?
I think it's about relationships in everything that I do. And any time when a relationship breaks, I think that's really hard. So breaking up with a client in this environment, sometimes clients don't want to pay. So we can do a great job and then they'll literally come back and say that they can get that service for a lower price. And sometimes they have to, there's pressures that mean they have to make that decision. But I never get to a point where I don't beat myself up going through that process because I feel like I've failed somehow, that they didn't value what my team were providing and the value that they were providing and how they give so much to the relationship. So that's probably the stuff that weighs heavily, that and anything to do with a relationship with people where it doesn't go well. A worker who's injured that doesn't have a great experience and doesn't go well, they're probably the biggest failures that I see.
Sure. Yeah. And that's hard when you feel like you've let people down or they don't appreciate what you have to give them and that you've been busting your ass and they don't appreciate it. God damn it. So how do I going to phrase this here a little bit? How do you think you've changed as a leader over time?
I'm probably still the same leader. I think it's probably the way I lead. I'm a little more confident these days, and I I give myself permission to have fun a lot more now. I used to I thought that I had to be a lot more serious, whereas now I think what we do can be really tough. So I really try to bring a bit of fun to what I do every day in some way. And it's usually really silly stuff. But I think that's one thing that I can say, well, I've got the most connected leadership team I've ever had. But the one thing that's consistent is that they are completely authentic. And I think keeping a sense of fun makes that happen.
Do you think that's the only thing? Like, what are the other ingredients that you've built everything from the ground up. So you've got your fingerprints all over it. What else have you done, do you think, that's led to such a well-connected, authentic team?
I think it's about finding your superpower and knowing that everyone's got something, and then really leveraging that, and all of us really celebrating that and being okay that I don't have it, but you might. So that real sense of team and connection and being able to lean on each other is really important.
How do you discover those superpowers?
You try and fail, and you learn and grow. So, someone who may not have a great communication style might just work out that the more that they put into that, or that failure might end up being their superpower. So I've got really great technical people, and then I've got amazing people leaders who just know how to lead from the heart, and a lot of generosity as well. So I think by having that giving culture, and we have a bit of a rule about not keeping score, and I think that just keeps us all really grounded and authentic.
What do you mean by not keeping score?
Those little things, like it's a way of not judging, and it's a way of not knowing that I've got one up on you, or I've got, if there's an issue that happens, it passes quickly, and we kind of let it go.
Oh, okay. So that's like keeping score from a negative point of view. Like,
that's right. Yeah.
That's a little black X against somebody's name or whatever.
Yeah, like be the goldfish and let it go. Forget about it after a minute.
How do you prevent like silos and rivalry? Like that's a big issue in a lot of executive teams.
I think it's by that approach. It's by knowing that in this instance, I need your help, and being okay to ask for it. And we encourage each other to do that too. So it's not about overplaying your strength either. So it's not about going to Zoe every time because she's going to have the answer. But I would test that with Zoe first and make sure you've kind of fleshed it out with her first. So yeah, it's definitely not about we only have that one role, but it's just like bringing that person into the thought process so that you can be confident that you are going to nail that conversation or nail that issue.
A lot of leaders struggle with trying to get their executive teams to step up and think strategically. And this is sort of like the wish list for a lot of the CEOs that I work with. It's like, I need my executive team to get their heads out of their own garden and look at the whole. Now, this is where my metaphor is going to fall apart. Get their heads out of their own patch of dirt and look at the whole garden. That's probably a better metaphor. How do you go about doing that? How do you go about building a whole of organization perspective with your leadership team?
I think if you do encourage that you don't own anything, like you don't own the people, we all own the people, you don't own the strategy, we all own the strategy, you'll get that diversity of thought. And I think encouraging the diversity as well, deliberately bringing in people that we know are going to disagree with us is a good way to go through the process and just check that we're not kidding ourselves, because the one thing that you risk is that your team becomes so united that you lose the challenge. So I try to create healthy tensions and create healthy challenge. That's
really fascinating. So what do you mean by like, you don't own the people, we all own the people? Does that mean that team members are fluid between teams, or how does that work in practice?
So the teams, in your organisation, you may have teams, but if there's a people challenge in the team, a performance issue or a personal struggle, it's around how that leader is managing it. We expect them to come to the leadership team with that issue so that we all have arms around that issue. And it's just a good way to make sure that the direction is right and we can all feel that we have contributed because we all own the business.
Love it. Let's get everyone's arms around the issue. That's a fabulous visual. So the other thing I wanted to dig in, I'm giving you all the hard questions today, Susie. Reward and recognition, right? So if you have an egalitarian approach or, we're all first among equals here, how do you go about doing recognition and reward for high performance? Is it team-based? Is it individual-based? Is it a combination?
My personal view is I feel like it's team-based all the time because it's that approach that we all contribute. So my personal preference is for team-based reward or small team-based reward. But then I think it's really important that you call out excellence and make sure that you recognise that. So I think I've got a healthy balance of both, and we work really hard to promote and get recognition for people, right down to the people who do the small stuff really well, because that's really important. So I think we've got a really giving culture, and we've got a really great system where we do recognise and call out, but I do shy away from anything that's a bit cringy and try to make sure that it feels really authentic.
What's a cringy type of recognition?
The weekly award for whatever, or the Vegemite award that everyone gets a go at. I don't like that kind of feeling that it's my turn to get an award, or it's been a year since I've got an award, so what's going on there? It's I do try to make sure that when someone does something excellent, we do it on the day. We call it out on the day, and we find a way to celebrate it.
What is a Vegemite reward? Did I miss? Is that a personal expression, or what is that?
You should have played sport in Australia when you grew up, and you would know what I'm talking about. Everyone got the little jar of Vegemite. That was the trophy every week for if you kicked the goal. Or
are you freaking kidding me? That was the prize? A little jar of Vegemite? I'd take that thing and throw it over my shoulder.
Tell me you still don't like Vegemite.
It's never the first thing on my mind when I go to the fridge. Vegemite.
Well, if you played sport and you were starving, that was the only thing you got when you got home, you would grow to love Vegemite.
Okay, there you go. I learned something new today. Not to have Vegemite rewards. Not easy done on my task list. Oh, hilarious. So here's a great question. What do you wish you knew about leadership when you first started out?
I wish I knew whose opinion to value the most, probably, because I worried so much about what everyone thought, or I just wish I'd been more strategic around who I worried about.
Okay, so now that you're here, how do you answer that question? Like, whose opinion should you worry about? Not worry about. Whose opinion should you pay more attention to? How do you answer that question now?
The ones, I think it's about, well, now I would say I'd worry about people who I think are worth worrying about around those opinions. So I think I spent a lot of time when I was young just worrying that if I wasn't in the safe zone, that there would be some kind of backlash. And now I think I'm okay with that healthy tension. I'm okay with someone disagreeing with me. And then it's just the way that you disagree these days. But yeah, I just think you've got a choice around somebody having a differing opinion to you do, and whether or not that needs to be a problem or not.
Oh, that's lovely advice. Whose counsel do you seek out? Like, if you're looking for advice, if you do look for advice, what are your tick list qualities for that?
I've got a couple of really great people that I can go to for counsel. I've got an amazing boss who is really generous with her time and is really authentic and super smart. And I'm lucky that I can bounce things off her around, is this a safe place to go if I'm going to contradict? And then I've got amazing friends who, in other ways, like a lot of the people management stuff that plays on me, I often go to like a trusted friend to say, am I out of line here? Am I expecting too much? Because I think especially in this time with so much going on, I think it's okay to expect a little bit more, because it gives us a purpose and it gives us a way of working through all of this. But then sometimes it weighs on me at night that I'm maybe expecting a bit too much, or I'm pushing a bit too hard, and then I go back to the old place and worry.
The self-censoring worry button.
Yeah, that's it.
Oh, goodness. All right. You're an avid learner and reader. What book recommendations do you have for people?
Do you know what? So I was thinking about this. What am I going to tell Zoe? She's going to ask me what I've been reading. And I have to admit, I have not been reading through COVID. I've started, but I've found it really hard to absorb. But what I have been doing is trying to find things to watch that fill my heart. And rather than a book recommendation, I would like to give you my TV show recommendation, which is Ted Lasso, which is the most amazing, heart-filling, and has some really great leadership and team building tips. So if you have not watched that, so you get on that right away.
I have not watched that, and I will get on it right away. Ted Lasso.
Ted Lasso.
What's the story about?
It's a football coach who leaves America to manage a football team in the UK. So completely fish out of water, but an amazingly positive person whose spirit can't be broken, and also just building a team of a group of people that are looking sideways at him from the minute he arrived. So yeah, it's been through this. There's just so many nice lessons in the show that I've been relying heavily on.
Yeah. Okay. Awesome. All right. Ted Lasso, noted. I will pursue that. Who do you admire as a leader? Have you got anybody that is an ideal for you?
I've been really lucky, and I've had amazing leaders. Some have been amazing in a fantastic way, and some have been amazing in an absolute horrible way. But it's given me more lessons than I could ever learn any other way. So I've been really lucky. But I do look externally. I made the first choice ever in my career to leave the organisation I was at to follow Mark Coyne, who's the CEO of EML. And I came over to this place with no idea about this legislation based on being able to work with Mark. But there's some amazing leaders in here, and my current CEO, Jania, is just a force and a spectacular people leader. So I am really lucky to work with her. And then I just look externally. I really loved Mark Boris's story, and I followed him for a long time. So yeah, I do pick and choose, but yeah, I've really been lucky.
Okay. So I want to just dig into this a little bit. So Mark, the CEO of EML, when you first came over, what was it about him and his leadership that you found compelling?
It was the sense of team. So it was a sense of, if you knew about Mark, his first career was a football player, and he was really successful in that. So I think it was that sense of team and that sense of I would never let him down because he loved to win. And I really connected to that I love to win too. And so, yeah, I think that's how we connected, just on the sense of purpose and the never give up, and, the values that I saw him lead by.
Okay, I like that. And then you talked about the current CEO and that she's a fabulous people leader. How does she demonstrate that?
She's quite a force. She's very powerful and incredibly smart. But she's also, to work for her, she's incredibly kind and generous. So I feel very safe working for her because of the wisdom and because of her experience. And she had a really tough leadership journey. So I feel now that she's in a place where she can kind of lead with her feminine, sort of softer side, which is a really nice thing to see. So it's really rewarding to work for Virginia.
And that's interesting. So her feminine, softer side, what does that look like? Like, how can you give me some practical observations of that?
It's things like, one of the things that she's done right away is she's been part of implementing maternity leave for the organisation. Like we were behind some other organisations in that regard, and she's come in and that's happened right away. Also, just the way that I align with her view around personal injury and the way that we should care and support people back to work. It's definitely not a financial organisation. We're very much about people and supporting people and getting their lives back.
Okay, beautiful. And lastly, Mark Burris. Okay, so I've seen him speak and he's gorgeous. And
yeah,
I've seen him do the speech, and halfway through the speech, he takes his jacket off and everybody leans in and pays more attention. And I've seen him do that twice in two different speeches. I'm like, it's part of his whole speech deal. It's very intentional. So that always I'm not sure if it put me off or got me more intrigued. I'm not sure which. So obviously that's not what you were referring to in terms of what you were fascinated by. What is it about his story that you find compelling as a leader?
I think it was just the story around the journey. But yeah, I didn't know he took the jacket off for you too. Now I'm feeling a little bit disappointed.
You remember that too from whenever you saw him talk?
Yeah, I think it was really, I don't know, Zoe, it was kind of, it's that presence that I wish I had. It's that ability to kind of command and tell a story and have everyone listening.
All you got to do is take your jacket off, Susie.
Maybe. All this time.
I know, it's weird, right? Then a part of me is like, that's what professional speakers do. They craft their speech and their presentation so that it's memorable for people. And it doesn't mean that it's not genuine, even though it's staged. And the fact that he made it look so seamless is a story to that. I think it's a fine line, right? So was he trying to manipulate people? No, I don't think he was trying to manipulate people, but it definitely caught people's attention in the audience. I'm not the only one, clearly.
Yeah, I think it's that ability to have a brand that people connect to. So whether or not it's just trust or being authentic or commanding some kind of action, I think that's what I'm drawn to, because it's, for me, it's all about energy and people that energize me. So, yeah, I'm disappointed that he took the jacket off every time now that
I'm so sorry to pierce your bubble on that one. It's okay. Yeah. All right. I'll just let you process that. So on presence, like that's something that has been on your mind and a focus for many years. Do you believe you have commanding presence now?
I would love to say I do, but I think at times I do. When it matters, I do. I think if in the moment that matters, I will have that. But if I wish I could turn it on like that as easily as taking off the jacket and clicking on. But I think it's a confidence thing now that if you're passionate about what you're doing, that will come through. So it's being able to just disconnect from the fact that you are being looked at and just making it about what's going on. And to be honest, it's not something I really have to think about too often these days, but I definitely used to worry about that a lot 20 years ago.
Yeah, I think a lot of people mistake charisma for presence. And charisma is a bright and shiny thing. And Mark Burris has that in spades. He has a lot of charisma. He's charming. He's good looking. He walks with this sort of, what is it? It's like quite an arrogance, but almost a strut, or I don't know. Anyway, we could analyze him to death. So that's charisma. Presence doesn't have to be charisma. It's, as you've described it, it's about connection and speaking with conviction. And I was happy that you answered in the way that you did, because I believe you do have commanding presence. And it's not the Mark Burris style. You don't strut and stroll like that. Where you have commanding presence is your connection. So you are outward facing, other focused, and your eyes light up, and you have this passion about you, about your purpose and the people that you serve. And that is your presence on fire. And you say you can turn it on when you need to. Well, you have it already there. You just dial it up or dial it down. And I think that is genuine presence when you have that. And everybody's got their own version of presence. And I think I'm so glad that you've stepped into yours, because it's just beautiful and shiny.
It's such a blessing to be able to do something that you love every day. But I do think we can make that happen too, no matter what we do. I think that's something else that we spoke about a long time ago, around having that almost childlike play in what you do, to find a little bit of fun in no matter what it is. And I think I've definitely lived that a lot.
Yeah, you've brought that essence of yourself to the table and given it permission to flourish. And I think that's part also of your beautiful presence, is allowing yourself to be fully and wholly you, and giving everybody else permission to do the same. And I think that's part of your commanding presence. Thanks,
Zoe. How lucky to be able to have a chat after all this time about this sort of thing.
Yeah, it's always amazing to have conversations with people who've known you over a long time and be able to observe the evolution of yourself, which is awesome. Susie, I have loved this conversation. I love hanging out with you. I'm so glad that we made this work. Thank you so much for coming on the show.
No, thank you. It was, I wasn't quite sure what to expect, but no, I've thoroughly enjoyed it. It's been lovely. Thank you.
that was such a personal delight to have a great conversation with Susie. I think she is one of the best humans that I know. I just adore her, and I love her approach to leadership. And I love her philosophy of helping everybody else have a wonderful day and making sure everybody has a great day. I think that's, as a mission, as a leader, you could do worse, right? It's a lovely mission, helping others have a great and wonderful day. And that outward focus, that other focused philosophy and practice is something that we can all take with us and remember and remind ourselves to do as we go along on our own leadership journeys. Well, I hope you enjoyed that conversation. I certainly did. And if you want to have more of those conversations, be sure to sign up for the weekly podcast notification by email. You just go to our page, zoerouth.com, click on podcast, and sign up to get notifications each and every week so you don't miss an episode ever. Also, if you want some handy dandy hints and a fabulous resource, go click on resources while you're on my site and sign up for our free guide on how to spot and deal with difficult behaviors in the workplace. It's a perennial issue, and this is a lovely little cheat sheet and report to help you guide you through that. All right. Well, have a wonderful day, evening, afternoon, wherever you are. And in the meantime, live well, lead well.
You've been listening to the Zoe Routh Leadership Podcast with leadership expert Zoe Routh. For more about people stuff and to contact Zoe, go to zoerouth.com.